But it seemed like, holy crap, if this is gonna be how every day is.
That's the first time we've had anything booked in advance.
Yes, planning.
So now that we've been doing this a few days, have any of your thoughts changed? Were you scared or have those, why the hell did we do this feeling? Are you any less like that now?
As cliche as it is, I think my feelings have been going up and down and all around, loop-de-loop, just like a roller coaster. I warned you, it's the most cliche there is. But there were times where I was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, I've never done this before. I've lived in Arizona my entire life and we're leaving. If I was ever going to move somewhere, this is the most fun, adventurous way to do it. And then there were times where, oh my gosh, we just sold all our stuff and we've got everything in the car now, so we're pretty much doing this. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It wasn't so much the we sold all our stuff part. In my very core, I'm a minimalist, and less really is more, especially when it comes to just stuff, the same stuff that you think is going to make you happy, but it never does. Since we've been doing this now, I've surpassed the exhaustion point where everything just seemed like a huge chore. Getting our tourist visas and then getting the tip for the car and having all these uncertainties of where we were going to stay next, lugging bags around, and I don't mean I was lugging them around, but Jordan was doing it and it was just making me tired watching him. Now that we've gotten past that, I am extremely excited to be doing this. The best is still yet to come. We're going to have so many more adventures and great stories and experiences, meet amazing people, eat delicious food. That's all I can even think of right now. I'm sure there's great stuff that's going to happen that I don't even know is out there yet.
After spending several weeks running around, preparing for everything, getting everything sold, doing all those last minute preparations we needed to do, it was super stressful, and we're like, okay, once this is done, it's going to be better. But then we got on the road and shit was just stressful. Nothing got better. It was long days of driving, no rest, one thing to do after another after we crossed the border, getting the tourist visa, getting the temporary import permit. And
even just getting those things alone is kind of exhausting. But then it was the getting past the border and then having to go back to get the tourist visa and then not having cash and having to get cash and then having to go back.
And having to drive in the dark.
And having to drive in the dark. It just seemed like, what have we gotten ourselves into? We've gotten ourselves into some pretty crazy travel situations. One day we will tell you about the time that we got stranded in Iceland. Yes, Iceland. Stranded. It's not like we don't know how to roll with the punches and figure out things as they come, but it seemed like, holy crap, if this is going to be how every day is, just having to put out one fire after another, not really ever feel like we can experience things instead of fighting upstream to just move along, then what were we thinking?
I'll tell you what though,
do this?
It would be much easier getting the things we needed, doing it a second time. It'd be super easy once you know what you're doing.
So hopefully our experience can be something anyone else watching this can learn from. We encourage you to ask us any questions about things that you might not be sure of, like get the temporary import permit, how do I drive through Mexico, what do I need to watch out for besides the topes. If we have any advice or any of our experiences can help you, we would be glad to share those with you, so feel free to ask.
But it's been interesting so far. We've basically been doing this without much of a plan. We have a plan to drive down the Pacific coast and visit various places, but up until now, we didn't know where we were going to stay until about 24 hours before each day. Or less.
Which actually, it seems like that's a pretty scary thing on its own, but that was like one of the least stressful things. That was one of our last issues on our minds in terms of priorities. But luckily now we have this weekend, and through my birthday, it's coming up.
February 5th.
February 5th. We have 4 or 5 days.
We have the next 4 nights are booked. That's the first time we've had anything booked in advance.
Yes, planning.
We've finally gotten settled down. We've gotten most of the things that we need to do out of the way. The first couple days of driving were very long days of driving. We were already exhausted.
What we were trying to do was basically get out of the areas that we had noticed desire to stay in, and that's why we crammed so much into one day. I would recommend though, especially on the first few days, even if it seems like this isn't somewhere where we want to be, looking back, I kind of wish that we had found a few more cities along the way so that we could take care of all these things without already being exhausted from really long days of driving. We may have been a little bit more prepared for all these other things, or had the presence of mind to think of these other things if we didn't have such foggy-headed, tired brain.
And so far we had been planning on driving no more than 4 hours a day, but the first day ended up being something like 7 hours. The next day ended up being 6 or 7 hours. We've started scheduling our places to visit about 2 hours apart. And we're going to be slumming it tonight and the next night. Slumming it, exactly. This Airbnb that we just stayed at was by far the most expensive. It ended up being about $60 a night. And the next 2 nights are $14 a night, staying in Ciudad Obregón.
We'll be saving a little bit of money on these nights. We're also quite sure that if we were using other websites or maybe just asking around locally where we could rent, it would be wildly cheaper, because these places are renting in terms of US dollars. If they were in pesos, it would be so much cheaper, because if they charged too much, then no one would rent there locally.
But once we get to a place where we want to spend more time, we'll ask around, find a better deal.
It's probably a good idea if you, like us, are not familiar with Mexico at all, to be able to vet them ahead of time with the ratings that they have on Airbnb. And then you do have some recourse if something goes wrong, if you show up and the place is a disaster. Airbnb sort of has your back a little bit, whereas if you were trying to find something locally and you didn't know how it was going to be, it could end up being an even worse situation we thought. So we're okay doing this for now until, like Jordan said, we decide that a city is great and we want to stay there.
Speaking of learning Spanish, that's one thing. I've picked up a lot more words since traveling already, just these few days. For example, seeing road signs and looking at a menu in Spanish. Probably my biggest problem, not knowing enough vocabulary.
This isn't a secret. Immersing yourself in a culture and immersing yourself in the language is going to be the best way to learn. What we've done up to this point has been immensely helpful, having a foundation of Spanish and sentence structure and verbs that's been way better. We're probably going to pick up even more since we have that than if we were to just come here knowing hola and gracias. All of those are great
And
words
cerveza.
to know. And cerveza.
And tequila.
Tequila and tacos.
And with that, I need to get back to doing my Spanish lesson. Bye for now.
Adios. Then I didn't really know what to do, because I had exhausted all of my phrases for does this have milk in it, because I don't want milk.
Well, this waitress came up to me and said something to me. I have no idea what she said.